Hi, everyone. This is Matt Schaub with another installment of Prime TSR's Digital 2.0 series. Here, we're interviewing the best and brightest senior digital executives for their perspective on the importance and role that technology plays within their organizations as well as our everyday lives. Joining me today, Ran Ribenzaft, who is a CTO with Espagon, which is now a part of Cisco. Interesting company providing a pretty innovative set of offerings all around helping developers and ops teams in the space of observability. Ran, thank you for joining us. Ran, do you want to talk about the company real quick? Because I found the products interesting.
Sure. And thanks for inviting me over here. A few words about the company. So Espagon was founded 4 years ago. Our main mission was helping developers on their transformation or modernization processes. So ultimately, we're bringing observability into modern stacks, cloud native, microservices, Kubernetes, serverless, and helping them basically on the day-to-day and when production goes wrong. So that's what we did. And, last year we got acquired to Cisco by some decent amount. And now we're pretty much amplifying what we did over here at Cisco.
Yeah, it's great because when we talk about digital transformations, the products that you guys provide, I see it as like the backbone of what companies are doing. And I also think it's interesting, you guys are innovating and modernizing as a company. At the same time, what you're doing is helping other companies. And so there's kind of an interesting take, I think, that you bring to the table here. So let's jump in. I'd like to get your perspective on a few things. When you reflect on your past, when you look at what you've done in your body of work, what's been the biggest lesson you've learned about this journey of transforming companies from a digital perspective?
As I mentioned, I've seen many companies from smaller ones to the largest enterprises starting their transformation process. And I think the number one lesson that I've learned, it's that this process takes time. I know sometimes, you allocate some budget to it, you allocate like maybe a quarter or 2 quarters, and it's just not enough. It's not like a one-time thing that you'll finish up by a quarter or even sometimes not even a year. It might take long. So expect it to be, to some extent, a never-ending story. It's not one-time shot. It goes on and on. This is the first one. I also seen some mistakes on these processes. And the most important one is trying to digitally transformize or innovate or modernize the entire organization all at once. It just doesn't work. It can take thousands of engineers, 10,000s of people, and transform them in a year or even less. Start small. Start with taking chunks of it, maybe one team, one service, one application, one business unit at most. And even this is relatively large. And showcase, to some extent, use this as a POC to what's a modernization and transformation process would look like for you. Once you start small, also see if you can learn and adapt, because probably the first transformation, the first modernization process wouldn't look like the 5th one or the 10th one. Try to understand, iterate, and retrospective what you're doing from each one to one. Each one would be a different project, a different direction, different technologies. So see if you can improve yourself over it. And once you've done that first couple ones, then you can start plan the longer term, digital transformation, this 5-year plan for what's going first and what's going last. Which technologies are we going to use? What type of budget do we need for that? And how the organization is going to look like.
Yeah, I like it, Ron. It's like bring an agile mindset to it, find victories, and then build upon that. That's perfect. That's really good perspective. Baby steps and MVPs, I think, it's the way to go here. I talk about this stuff a lot, and I throw a lot of words around. I talk about innovation, transformation, modernization, all that. When you look at all those words, what does it really mean? Like if you were to boil it down, what is it that we're really talking about when we throw those words around?
I think most of the times these terms are interwoven to one another. People might say we're doing digital innovation while it's actually a transformation or even sometimes a modernization. I think it all boils down to driving the business for the long term, moving it forward, make sure it's successful not 1 year from now, but 5 or 10 years from now. It includes sometimes, implementing some new technologies, changing the processes, training people for new stuff. And ultimately, you would like to boost your productivity across the team. So either by getting new technologies like, cloud and Kubernetes and serverless, or changing the way they work into, let's say, some agile or some different methodology, or even implementing some day-to-day tools that will increase their productivity, just like Epsagon did. It helped them on their day-to-day while they implemented new technologies. So as the one that leads this innovation, transformation, modernization, I don't want to get into words and semantics. This one means exactly that. But ultimately, the ones that are responsible for that should help the business strive and still be relevant in 10 years from now. That's what they should have in mind.
Yeah, I like it, Ron. It boils down to being more productive, and that's it's great too because you can measure that. I think that's good.
Also, by the way, being able to measure your transformation process and innovation, and how do you boost the productivity, or how new technologies help you, it's super important.
Yeah, it's like, what do we want to get out of this? That's what we got to focus on. I agree wholeheartedly. Now, if we reflect forward, if we start looking into the future, what do you see as having the biggest impact on our ability to execute these journeys within our companies?
Looking now from being both at startup or biggest enterprises, I would say there are two things. One, which relates to people and culture. Being able to move fast, it's important. I still remember, on some previous roles and jobs, we used to develop in a waterfall way, which took us sometimes 6 months to a year until we released a new version. Today, releasing a software in a year, it's unheard of. You can't be relevant. So being able to adapt and adopt new cultures of product and engineering, new people that are willing to move the business forward and work more in an agile, today it's agile, by the way, maybe in 5 years from now, it's a different method, different type of process, but being able to adapt, it's important, and it's driven by the people, which drives the culture, which drives these processes and methods. And then the second one is the infrastructure. Now, when saying infrastructure, I don't mean just, cloud. I mean it very broadly. Any tool that helps us innovate faster, it can be cloud, obviously. It can be containers. It can be serverless. It can be edge. It can be AI and machine learning. And it can also be things like, how do we share information between teams? How do we make ourselves not rewrite some codes of pieces that are very standards, like how do we charge a user, how do we communicate with the user, how do we authenticate the user, things that are repetitive from every company to company, and even within a company are repetitive from a team to team. And even just how do we manage this process, tools like Jira and Confluence and similar things which are more modern help teams to gives them the infrastructure to innovate faster. So if you have the right people with the right mindset, and the industry are continuously improving the infrastructure for them to innovate, and you make sure that you adopt it, and it's not like, we're not in the cloud, we're still doing waterfall, we're still doing that. Make sure to change it. If you have both, you'll probably get to there in some way.
Yeah, but I like this broader use of infrastructure. It's really like the foundation with which we're operating on. Ron, are there any companies out there right now that you look at that surprise you in how they're embracing the digital journey, the innovation? Like, who stands out to you?
So, I could easily say things like the most digital native businesses out there, which are innovative, but that's the easy.
They're easy.
Yeah, exactly. I could say Netflix, I could say Uber, I could say
Amazon, Google. Yeah.
Exactly, but for them it's almost mandatory, and that's their culture. And I'm actually surprised by companies that have been existing for longer than that, and companies that are born not digitally, they're born for a different business, and they do manage to keep innovate. So, one of the stories that I really like is McDonald's. I know I'm not a big fan of their food, but I'm really a big fan of the way they provide it, the innovation that they provide on top of it. You think of, McDonald's is like a burger company. Probably if you'll ask, half of the people around the globe, they'll say, oh, these are the burger guys.
Right.
And it's much more than that. People don't think it's a data or tech company, but actually it's pretty much is. And, from starting to bring in the fast checkouts on drive-throughs and, in the branches, where you can just get yourself something. It's not intuitive to think about something like that. And they came up with that. And all the data that they're analyzing, they have a lot of use cases and stories, how they improved, their own business using the data that they've gathered, on what people like and how do they consume it and when do they consume it. You don't think that a company that provides milkshakes would try to understand where and when people are, consuming milkshakes. And then on top of it, they also provide personalization. If I'm getting into McDonald's and another person gets into McDonald's, we'll get a different experience, which is amazing to think, because what else can I get there? It's just burger, nuggets, milkshake, but then each one has its own flavor. And, it's a company that continuously acquire. The reason I know about them, because there's been a company in Israel, a startup that got acquired to them. And, that lead up to me, why does McDonald's buy marketing, tech, and data company in Israel? And ultimately, looking at them, and they're results driven. They really strive to have an end goal to their transformation rather than just let's bring some new technologies on board and let's see if something happens.
It's interesting too, Ron, because it would have been easy for them to do nothing. It would have been easy for them to just keep making burgers and milkshakes, kind of the status quo. Yet it seems like what stands out is they're embracing that direction going forward. That's a good one. It's funny, I've been hearing a lot about them in that regard too. It's coming up a lot in some of the tech news, some of the innovations and things that they're doing. So that's a great one. Ron, let's do the hot seat. So we've got some topics that we're going to throw at you, and we want to get your perspective on whether you see these as the real deal, whether you see them as hype, or WTF. I have no opinion on these things. I don't even know what they are. And we'll walk through several ideas here. First one, I'll lead off with an easy one. AI.
I think it's still hype. It's going to be real. It's still in that phase where it's nice recommendations, where even if it lacks or misses or having false positives, okay. I still want to see that in real life examples where I'm saying, wow, that's mind blowing. How could I, leave a doctor and let AI heal me? Or how did I leave something really important to the mercy of that computer to help with it? And I still think it's not there, but I think it's very close.
That's it. That's good. I appreciate it, because I think what you're talking about is the accessibility of it, getting it closer to the individual. So that's an interesting take on it. Appreciate that. The next one is the metaverse.
For me, metaverse, it's still WTF. I used to play Second Life a really long time ago, which probably was the first version of metaverse. It was nice, but then I still don't understand the concept, but maybe I'm too old for this. Maybe it's, it's 20 years from now, and it will take time, but I'm pretty sure that someday someone will have a better use to that.
Yeah, or same thing, what we just said. Maybe the accessibility of it just needs to get more real to us. That's kind of ironic, having the metaverse get more real. That makes no sense. But anyways, it's a good take on it. The next one is crypto.
As the owner of a few coins here and there, I still think it's hype, but that's also one of the things that are going to be real. I think crypto can be easily used as the backbone for finance in the future world. Because think of it, 1,000 years ago, we didn't have those bills that we're paying with.
Yeah.
We probably had coins, and even before that, we didn't even have coins. And I guess somewhere, not 1,000 years from now, but maybe 100 years from now, or even less, we'll find ourselves paying with a different type of backbone to some extent. So that's definitely going to be real. I'm betting on it, but it's still not there. Most of the use cases are like NFTs and collectibles and things like that. So I'm really looking for the time that, entire companies will say, we're stop using bills, we're stop using money as you know it, and we're just adopting digital currency. It might not even be crypto or Ethereum or something else. It can be something new, but that's a whole new infrastructure.
Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't carried currency in 2 years. I think very few people do now. So we're kind of getting there. It sounds like we're heading in a direction. The next one, remote or hybrid work. Speaking of the last couple of years, what's your take on us being remote?
It's real. I'm personally not a person of remote, neither in my work nor with my employees. Really into face-to-face time. It's real. I mean, it happens. I think remote work taught us that work could be hybrid to some extent, sometimes here and sometimes there. So it's real, but in my opinion, fully remote is not the best option. Hybrid work would be a better option.
Yeah, but it seems like I agree with you. It's like, I think it's here to stay. I think we've all embraced it. Last one on the list, kind of a character, Elon Musk.
Real, definitely real. This person has sometimes, WTFs, but ultimately this person brought us some of the most unique and advanced innovations in the globe, and is on a mission to do some more of these, so definitely real.
Yeah, great. I love it. So Ron, appreciate your time today. It's been really fun talking with you. Your insights have been outstanding, so thank you so much.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Our pleasure.